Hi guys, welcome to day 18. Today's topic is going to be how to tell loved ones, and including kids, about fibromyalgia and what it feels like for us. So that seems to be kind of a common question for all of us, including myself. And trust me, I have learned so much when asking our community about how they have found success in telling their loved ones about fibromyalgia without having to try to explain it in so many words. So I'm going to give you guys a few helpful tips that are not directly from me, but they are directly from our incredible community. So let's get started. Explaining fibromyalgia to people can sometimes feel like a never-ending battle. When they haven't been through it, they're never going to fully understand, and I accepted that a long time ago. But there are some ways that I have found personally that have helped people at least get the gist of it, and at least start to understand that what we go through is completely real. And I actually did a video on one of these techniques that really helped my family understand because they could physically visualize it. And that is spoon theory. I believe it was back on day 6 and 7 that we talked about spoon theory. And I'm not going to go too much into it, but the spoons represent the amount of energy that we have, and every task takes a certain amount of spoons or energy to complete. And if we're out of spoons, we're out of energy. So that's a good way how we can explain at least our energy to someone and make it visual for them. And I wanted to start with the spoon theory one because that one seems to be the most effective when explaining why we just don't have energy to do anything, why we don't have energy to clean, why we don't want to go out. I always put spoons or energy on certain people. So if someone takes a lot of my energy away, then I don't really spend too much time with them physically, just because I'll run out of spoons. And it has nothing to do, I have nothing against those people at all. And I still make time to see them. But sometimes people take spoons too. It's not just tasks. But how do you explain the pain? Especially to kids. That was something that was brought up to me, and I never really thought about it until the one day I went to work and one of my nanny kids had asked, what does it feel like? One thing that helped my mom and sister kind of understand is I tell them to imagine a time when they had the worst flu ever. Just the worst flu they can think of. Of course, since our family has all had COVID was what was picked, and I have personally had it too. And it feels pretty close to COVID on some days, at least body ache-wise. Rest of the symptoms, man, I would wish Fibro over COVID any day, or at least how long I had it for. So then I tell them, think of the body aches. Like they were tired, they didn't want to do anything, and it really, really hurt them, and they were on a bunch of medication and antibiotics. Well, unfortunately, there's no antibiotics for COVID. So I tell them to think that, okay, your flu can't be treated. So what are you then going to do? And they really weren't sure. I was like, so if someone told you that that flu had to go away on its own, or that it never was, what would you do? And they still didn't have an answer, which was exactly my point that I wanted to prove. And I told them that's what it feels like every single day in our head and all of the outwardly symptoms. What we have can't be cured. And when my mom finally understood that, she was like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. I'm like, it is. It's like a flu that no antibiotic can treat, and that no medication can really treat. We can have medications that treat our symptoms. Sure, we can mask them. But some of us choose not to, like me. I don't want to mask my symptoms if I don't have to. And if they're bad enough, I know I can. But I explain it to them like it is that all over body ache feeling. It's that nausea. It's that no appetite. It's that the exhaustion. And that's what we feel on a good day. That's what we feel on a good day. And it was so impactful, at least to my family, when I explained it like that to them. And while my sister was a little bit younger, she had some trouble still grasping it, and so do my nanny kids. So to them, I explained it as, you know, when like you hit yourself really hard on something like the wall or a countertop and you get that bruise or that bone bruise and it really, really hurts for a while. And my sister said yes, and so did my nanny kids. And I was like, okay, Now imagine you have one giant bruise all over your body, like everything, every part of your body is bruised. And of course, my nanny kids that are 2, 6, and 9 were all like, whoa, your entire body's covered in bruises? I'm like, some days, because I don't know how I get some of them. But no, but that's what it feels like. And when I get touched, it feels like you're poking a bruise. Well, luckily, since they were all kids, that they all had bruises, at least somewhere. So I was like, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and poke that bruise real quick. And the 9-year-old was like, that hurt. I was like, yeah. So that's what my body feels like some days. Is that if it gets touched or poked, it hurts. And I said, I can't explain why it hurts, but it just does. And I could see the wheels start to turn. Like, why is your body covered in bruises? And that's the next question I got out of him, because he was able to grasp it a little bit better than the other two. The toddler just kind of sat by me and enjoyed the time. But he looked at me and he's like, but what causes that? And I said, well, my brain is unhappy. I'm like, well, I may seem happy. My brain isn't exactly happy in one spot. And I said, it's a spot that tells me when I hurt myself. Well, somehow that part of my brain decided to think that my body was always in pain and always in panic mode. And I'm not quite sure why, but that's what happened. And since it feels like that and it's not feeling well, that's how my body feels too. And that's how it shows that I've got that unhappy part of my brain right now. So I could see the wheels turning. So he looks at me and he's like, well, why do you have fibro? Why do you have it? And I said, I'm not sure. And he's like, well, what causes it? And I said, well, it's a little bit hard to explain, but let me give it a shot. Let me see if you understand. And it's okay if you don't. He said, okay. So I sat down and looked at him, and I was like, well, there's a part in my brain that tells us when we get hurt or when we're in pain, right? And he's like, oh, yeah. So, because they're on anatomy right now in science. So he was like, so it's a part of your brain that's telling you that you're in pain? I was like, yeah. So that part of my brain got hurt somehow and isn't happy. So it's causing my body to be in a lot of pain. It's almost like I have the flu all the time. And I could see it all click. And he's like, so it's like you have the flu all the time, because that part of your brain feels like it has the flu. And I'm like, yeah, like essentially that's what it feels like. So we have a lot of flu-like symptoms, but we don't actually have the flu. And that can sometimes be hard to tell when we do. And he laughed and he was like, well, is that on a bad day or a good day? And I was like, okay, well, that's on a good day that we have flu-like symptoms. And he's like, well, what happens on bad days? So I kind of paused because I really wasn't ready to answer that question, especially to a kid. Sometimes that one's a little bit easier to explain to adults. So I said, okay. I said, it almost feels like I fell off of that treehouse that you guys have in the backyard that you fell off of a week ago and you hurt for a week. And he was like, oh man, I can't believe that's how it feels. My whole body hurt, my head hurt, my neck hurt, everything hurt for a week. It's like, yep, that's about what my bad days feel like. And we call those flare-ups, because sometimes that part of our brain that causes the pain isn't always as upset. But some days it gets very upset and very scared. So it causes those pain signals again. And he started to get it. And then I saw the 6-year-old starting to understand it. So, and she repeated to me as well, so it is like the flu. So when you tell us you don't feel good, it's not that you're sick, it's just that you really don't feel good. I was like, yeah. I was like, exactly. I said, when you guys ask how I am, I'm like, and you guys have been pretty good at being able to tell when I'm not okay. She's like, oh, wow, I'm sorry that you have those days. She's like, you can just tell me when you're not okay, and I'll try to be a little bit better that day too. The things kids say sometimes, just, especially those kids, just make me laugh. Because I knew what she meant, and she meant it about her behavior. So she's going through a lot right now with her transition to full day school. So at that time it was a little bit harder for her. She was a little stressed. So, but we kept talking. And every time they had questions, I would try my best to explain it or try to find ways to explain it. I feel, too, that kids can understand it a little bit more than adults because kids don't need to see everything to believe it. Whereas adults, we do. Like, kids believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and the Easter Bunny. We as adults don't always believe in them. We don't believe in those things necessarily. So it's hard for adults to grasp something they can't physically see. So I actually found a picture that I posted way back at the beginning. And it was from a guy that was struck by lightning. And it showed all the bruising and the scarring. So I did show my 9-year-old that picture with mom's permission and showed him that picture, and he was like, whoa, I can't believe that's what your body feels like. I'm like, me either, man. Me either. I get it. And I started showing that picture to people, and they were shocked. They were like, holy cow, that can't be what you feel. There's no freaking way. It was like, well, sometimes you don't need to see to believe. Sometimes you just need to see other things that can relate to what you're trying to believe in. And that phrase made no sense the first time I heard it, but I've started to notice that adults started to get it as long as they had a visual. So that's the visual I've been using. And I'll put it at the end of this video too, of the guy that was struck by lightning. Because you could see all that bruising all over his body. Well, that's what we feel, guys. That's what we feel. And I know that explaining over and over again to people can just feel like that endless battle. And I know it's exhausting. I know it is. That's why I have tried to explain it in so many different ways to different people to see what helped people click. Because explaining it to people themselves helped me better understand how I felt. Because there are days I can't even put into words how I feel. I can only say that I feel sick. And not everybody's going to believe that when they can't see it. And that's why I tried to use those visuals. So give it a shot. Just give it one more chance with everybody that's asking. Show them spoon theory. Make your spoon theory chart. It'll take you like 20 minutes. Use that image of the guy struck by lightning. Explain to kids that it feels like a bruise and have them poke a bruise if they've got one, and that's what it feels like all over your body. Or even use that flu one. Explain that it's like a flu where you're being told by your doctor the antibiotics won't treat it and that you're going to have it forever. And that one seemed to work the best, at least with my family, to where they could at least kind of grasp it, that when I said I wasn't feeling good, they at least validated it and said, we're so sorry, can we do anything? And they've gotten better at accepting it, and people in my life have gotten better at accepting it. They'll still ask questions, and I don't mind answering them, and if I don't have the answer, I'll be like, you know what, Google it. Or let me Google it real quick, because I don't know how to explain it. And we know it can be frustrating, but I also recommend if you can, when you can, because of course COVID, you can't bring people to doctor's appointments right now. But see if you can call them in, FaceTime them, give them a phone call, have them ask your doctor questions. It can be extremely helpful to hear from somebody other than the one they care about, because they don't want to believe sometimes that we're in the pain we're in because they love us. So tomorrow's day 19. Tomorrow we're going to talk about 2 subjects that probably aren't kid-friendly. So on my YouTube channel, you'll probably have to verify that you're 18 and older. So tomorrow we're going to talk about dating and sex and what it feels like, because let's be real, both of those things can be very difficult, especially when you're a young adult and you're trying to find your person, and sometimes that person just doesn't understand. So I'm going to give you guys some personal experiences. I'm going to do some anonymous experiences that I have permission to share from other people. But I am very excited for tomorrow's topic. And I hope that you guys learned something today that can at least help you. So I hope you guys have an awesome day. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow.